last week. Gabor, you remember? You have notes?
Yeah, I have notes. Last week was just about the status.
Okay, no, there was nothing. Just dates. Or maybe a long discussion about the PR. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, long discussion about indexing stuff.
But it was merged. It was fine in the end. We just removed something. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So today, demos. No demos today. Who's there? Mike, George, Milos. No demos, Milos. Okay. We'll see later. Topics, we'll see later. Also, status fork. I will open the status from Orchard 1 here, just to see if something happened. Nothing was merged. Orchard core. Orchard core, we have it here. Here. Let's filter on main. So last week was what day? But I don't have my OneNote. What's the day today? 24/17? 18. Okay, 18. Store index profile as document in the document table. Let's see. So many changes, I believe, on the index. Yeah, we'll see a few rated. Maybe we'll skip if they are just fixes. So store index profile as document. I need to say that also list. So index profile, if you watch the meeting from last week, is the class that is used to store the indexes, all the metadata about the indexes from all the sources. And instead of using the document manager, it's using the session now directly.
Yeah, that's the main change here. Instead of using document to store everything, we just create. It's much better because we just kept on having issues with the document manager. So no more document manager here.
I want to say it's a good thing. Now I worry why we have the document manager. For synchronizing the nodes for sure, it's caching and everything, but probably we don't need cache at any point in this case. It's just quick transient request and caching doesn't matter. Synchronizing doesn't matter, which is fine. Maybe time to, well, you or anyone else who likes to do new things and want to try something, maybe we could have it could be an opportunity, not this one, but doing the same thing for something else that would use the hybrid cache from ASP.NET because it's in memory and the second level cache on a shared store like Redis, Blob, whatever you want. And it's also it's in memory by default, which means it will be cached locally. Would be a way to try that if we need caching of stuff and syncing. Like if we would hesitate using the document manager, maybe let's try the hybrid cache. The risk being, oh, yet another thing to store documents. Let's just see it as a cache if we need caching. Okay. And then an index. which can still be used with the document manager because kind of, if we need to do queries on that, then you can't. Index profile index. Can you do queries like this with the document manager? I think no. It's just by ID, document by ID.
Yeah, document just by ID, and then since everything in memory, you can just do an enumerable and filter by it.
Well, okay, in the document manager, there was one document with all index profiles, I assume. And now you have
Correct.
one YesSql document per index profile, and then you can query each document individually. Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of perf, one document would have been fine, I assume, because how many indexes will you have in your app? Worst case 10, right? Okay. One guy in the universe will have 100. So who knows? Okay, cool. Yeah, remaining comment here to clean. Okay, one less in the document manager. Now, improve reliability of unit test waiting by waiting for HTTP background jobs. New feature. Or was it done before that? Or is it a new method in this? No, it's not in this one. Did we talk about it last time? Maybe. Wait for HTTP background jobs async.
Yeah, it's similar for waiting for the outstanding deferred tasks, but something was using the HTTP background jobs instead.
HTTP background jobs, what is that?
We have this thing in Orchard to allow things to run after the HTTP context is closed. It's kind of similar to the deferred task. We can get rid of it, I think, but
that's weird because yeah, for me the deferred task is the HTTP deferred.
Yeah,
because
it's kind of similar.
We have background jobs, we have deferred task, and I'm like, what is HTTP background job? That's weird.
Yeah, but that's another discussion.
I think the difference there is that deferred tasks are after a scope being disposed, wherever that scope runs, and that can be even multiple times during a request, whereas HTTP background job is tied to an HTTP request and runs after an HTTP request. So you always have like HTTP context there, opposed to a background task, for example.
Oh boy. Also, it says 60 seconds. This is this one. Okay, timeout task. Yeah, there are other ways to that, but that works. That's weird. Yeah, there should be a description of this class to explain why. Okay, and did it fix the test?
Oh, there were.
No, but it helped. There's
It
more
helped, yeah.
follow-ups.
There were lots of different things related to this, but in the end, it's all fixed.
Okay, we'll see.
But it took multiple PRs.
See that.
It's also related.
Fix modular tenant events cannot add before-dispose callback for the shell scope. If we reviewed it, yeah, you found the bug and this is the fix, right?
Yes.
Fixing ArgumentNullException, what markdown body, the markdown body is available. Okay, it can be null, interesting. Context source. What's the context in this case? I resolve a GraphQL. Interesting. But not just GraphQL. Markdown part. Markdown can be null. Interesting.
Yeah, it's just was a first chance exception, and it's just fixing some internal things.
I believe any kind of serialization or deserialization could create an empty markdown. Or if you create a content item without going to the editor,
Yes.
probably also. Okay.
Correct.
IndexInitializerService.
Was removed purposely temporarily because we were encountering an issue, and then George fixed that issue and added it back.
Huh? Dependency, extension Azure, and Cypress image or version. Image. Don't query database on every admin request. For what? Change password. The new thing, the recent thing to change the password.
Yeah, in the view, we were querying the user every single request. We query the user just to get their user ID. Well, we don't really need to do that. We can get that from the claim, and we don't need to create a database every single time.
To get the user ID.
Yep.
I see. So you can get the currently logged user.
Yeah.
Did you look for usages of this one also to see if we were doing the same thing?
I have not.
Or maybe you found out that there was a SQL query and then after that there was no more SQL query.
Yeah, something like that. I was looking at the logs. I was like, why the heck are we calling it every single time?
Okay. Duplicate index creation. That was your issue with the one you pinged me, right? There were 2 documents created. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, then deferred task instead of background. So remove the HTTP background job async and use deferred task somewhere because you are waiting for that.
So the key here is that when you run a background task, it will run it immediately in the background. So if you have a session and the session hasn't been saved yet, and you're waiting on, for example, if you create a table and your background task is depending on the table that still haven't been created, you will get an error. But if you do an add deferred task, the deferred task will make sure that the code is fired in a background task. However, it won't execute it until the current thread finish, meaning like the database session has been saved.
Run scope.
Correct.
Yep.
And the background, the problem with that, actually, the execute after end of request, the name is misleading, and I think we should consider renaming it because it doesn't execute after end of, or remove it. I think it's useful to have it. So you can trigger a background task, but I don't think it should be called
same as the add deferred task from the concept point of view, right? Still both running at the end after the request is
that's true
fully done,
but it's immediate, so maybe someone needs to fire it off immediately. I just think the naming is kind of bad. Execute after end of request, which kind of doesn't make sense. It should say execute or invoke async or run now, execute now, or something like that. Execute async, but not. We could remove the after end of request because that part is misleading.
Agreed.
So we could absolute that one, the name, and just create a new name. This way we don't break anyone, but at the same time we migrate people to the new name.
But when is it executed exactly?
Right away.
So it's
Right,
not at the end of the
Yeah, but
request.
it waits until the HTTP context in the accessor is null. It's kind of weird. We saw this before, this timeout of 60 seconds. It's trying to execute after the full request is done, but it's more safe to use the add deferred task.
Yep.
And both are actually running in its own shell scope.
When we call execute, get the current shell scope.
Grabbing the current shell scope like this seems very weird to me. I've seen it a couple times done this way. I don't know. I feel like you might run into an issue where current is updated by different thread. And
No, it's an async local. It's always the current one.
And you intercept it, so that's good. Actually, that's good usage. Keep it in case the current one changes, but it should not because it's async local. Yeah. At least we are saving some kind of logic inside there to get just the reference. And then using child scope, we say register before dispose, but just to count, okay. And then we say,
yeah, then it's waiting until the context is set to null.
which means that the tenant middleware released the HTTP context by restoring the HTTP context or by closing the request.
Yeah.
And then we say either wait for the task to be completed or the request to be done.
No, or timeout. Wait 60 seconds. If it's not finishing within 60 seconds,
Oh,
we
I
just
see.
continue.
I see.
Or
So if your request
no,
takes
we
60
skip
seconds,
the task. I don't know.
like if you are Mike and you have a big index, you want to index and it takes more than 60 seconds, then you're screwed.
Yeah, it will not run.
Surprise.
And it's not even logged.
What does it mean? Is that even logged?
Yeah, there's no log entry that a task is being skipped or
Oh,
something.
logged. Okay, I understood.
Logged. Yeah, sorry. Bad English.
I will do a poll. How many people understood locked instead of logged? Oh, okay. Request has been done in less than 60 seconds. Then, okay, so there is no more HTTP context. Oh, let's create a new one.
Yeah,
Fake
dummy
one.
one.
The
Yeah.
fake one. Okay, dummy. And then let's do the work. Yeah, it's like deferred.
Yeah,
Like
it's
an
the
unsafe
same as
deferred.
deferred, but it just fires it right away. That's
It feels like
It's
it
different.
will, but yeah, but your code is actually running when it's done. So it looks like deferred. It will be interesting to see when it was introduced for what thing. Understand what that thing is that would work or would not work without it, and then try deferred to see what's the difference. Because just blindly replacing that with a deferred, we might hit a new bug that we won't find until next year. And we won't understand why it stopped working. Or someone is reporting it. So if we look at the history for that, because I'm sure it was created for a reason, for a bug or something. See, allow to trigger a background job if the tenant is initializing, maybe something like that. And look at that, it was created, for now it's not used in the source code, so it was not really necessary for now. It was just, oh, in case maybe someday we need something. So this was the first commit, and then let's see when it was used. Okay, can't be executed new tenant setup. Or initializing. Like when the migrations happen, maybe there's something with migrations that Deferred Task won't be able to handle. Zoltan is the expert with this class.
I had no idea.
It was not long ago. You're old on Zoltan now. You don't even remember.
Oh no, I don't remember everything. Not even what was yesterday.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, it would be interesting to see without it what fails. With some state. So this kind of thing here, Mike, I think is useless. Because in that case, if you want to pass multiple things, the pattern would be to have just T1 be a state object, like a tuple, an anonymous object, a custom class, a custom record. So you can pass one argument that would contain 4 properties. Okay.
I think we talked about that.
Ah.
Yeah, at one point I remember having that conversation.
Okay. And do you think I said the same thing, or do you think we
Yes.
agree?
No, you
Okay.
said we agreed on what you said too.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
But
See, I'm glad you remember because I have no idea. Okay, well, maybe we can remove it. We should try. Less things is better.
I would absolute it. I wouldn't remove it.
Oh,
I'm sure
yeah.
some people use it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, good idea. And see then if people complain and say, hey, why are you obsoleting it? I need that, and without that, it can't work. But at least that our things work. Functional tests, at least. Okay, so this one, roar, do a deep clone. That message is too long. Whoever merged it should have trimmed it. Do a deep clone to fix that cause the node already has a parent. Deep clone. Yeah, okay. Yeah, when we copy these things, we need to clone it, otherwise the source could be updated. Oh, the node already has a parent, even better. Because a JSON node can't be owned by multiple things. So if this thing is a subnode, which it is, because we have a document containing all the settings, or the part at least. So we are copying this node there, the reference, and then the node says, no, I'm already attached to a JSON document. I can be attached to 2 of them. So cloning. Okay, cool. Good fix. There should be an analyzer that prevents us from doing that. But it can't be a JSON one because system JSON one because it's our own method that takes something here. So we should have something that ensures that we call clone at least, or something that is cloned, or we disable the warning on the line. I'm sure we do that in other places because it's not the first time we have that there. Elasticsearch. Update client. And fixing the build item which failed with the new client.
Yeah, we identified both. Zoltan and I identified 2 different bugs in the Elasticsearch 18.1. I identified one, and then Zoltan identified one 18.2. And then they fixed them in 18.3, and then finally working.
Okay.
So
Cool.
now, yeah, we updated the version.
And apparently, since they just follow the Elasticsearch API or whatever this is tied to, they release breaking changes even in minor versions like this. So we updated from 8.17 something. So unfortunately, we have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, fucking people with those minor versions updates that actually break people, right?
I didn't say that, but it's a peculiarity of this project.
Migrate indexing task to record indexing task. Because as Mike explained to us last week, you didn't listen, but you was telling that to us. Only the people on Thursday know, right? That if you try to update the current indexing task table, it will take too long because that's how databases work. If you have too many things in a table, changing the table itself will take a lot of time and then timeout. And so now the solution is to actually create a new table with the correct fields and keep the old one. And Mike will say it's even better because this way you have a backup. So in case the migration is screwing everything up, then, well, you can still have the previous data. At least you didn't lose anything. No, this is just an indexing task. So if you just rebuild it, it will not harm anyone. So a new table, and you will see that in the migration here, not that. This one creates a table on setup, and there is the migration that updates it. I would have expected it in this one, but no. This one.
It's a migrations. That's an old file. It's called it's like the 5th one, I think, down on your list. 5th one from the top.
Oh, 5th one, this one. And the big change, though, that Mike did, which is much more clever, is that instead of updating the table by saying, oh, there is a new thing, or rename the column or whatever, like this one, there is a SQL query that does that. So select the source, insert it as a new table. So it's just one select and one insert on the server side. On the server side, meaning on the database server side, not on the web server side. Mentioning it because I was confused. Like everything happens on a server. What are you saying? And no, it's one SQL query. Insert the result of the select into this table. Okay, cool. Still not using the, maybe later we'll see. The quote, oh, quote neighbor name. Oh, it's quoting. Okay, good. Thank you. Cool. Thank you. New table, record indexing task. Update 541 because the 540.
Talking about breaking change in a patch.
You didn't listen to me. Zoltan got it, but you didn't get it. So it's not a breaking change, it's just code, source code breaking change. It's just runtime breaking change. Source code will be the same. But so the 541 was because there was a dependency on the analyzer, so that has been fixed. And also this one, oh, but the 540 is adding the cancellation token to all the async methods. If you don't pass one, it will be the default one. It's just that there is an analyzer that we don't disable, and that is a warning, so we will fail on that. That expects us to flow a cancellation token if we have it in the method, like this one as a cancellation token. So when we invoke YesSql, the analyzer says, hey, you have one in the caller, so forward it to the inner calls. Okay, that's the warning. That's why I didn't do a 6.0, because yeah, it's not really breaking. You can do a, yeah, it is breaking, but not
Binary
really.
breaking change for everyone.
Binary, yeah. And for some, source breaking. So the minor is but that's why it's a big change. Cool. Fix Azure data protection. This one didn't fix it, apparently. Mike told me today, but this one is interesting. So the Azure data protection, Azure Blobs data protection feature uses a helper method from the data protection library that is shipped as part of the Azure SDK. And there is something in the Azure data protection SDK that creates a custom scope locally, because they need to resolve a service that is in container. Instead of injecting it in the class, they just create a scope from scope factory that was injected in the class, and then they resolve from this local scope. And by doing that, you don't invoke any of the options that we set on the configuration. That's a bad pattern. So Mike found a way to prevent that by not calling into this service, by doing the custom registration of the class that needs to be resolved and resolving it using the correct scope. Mike also created a PR on the Azure SDK to fix it. That was merged. And I'm not sure, Mike, if you updated it. You did later on?
I updated it. Yeah, I updated it because it worked locally. And then when I deployed it, it wasn't really, it didn't fix the problem, which is unfortunate. So then I reverted that PR.
So you said,
but I took the new version.
It didn't fix the original problem that you worked around, so you kept the workaround.
Correct.
Interesting.
So the main difference, so just to kind of clarify what Sebastian said, is that we have a pattern that you can register a class, like in this case, the blob option, and then you can also register a configure class or a setup class. And by doing that, the configure class allows you to configure the options in the blob options asynchronously. So in this case, the benefit of doing it this way is that if you want to create a container, well, you can just do it asynchronously and you don't have to do blocking call. But that is Orchard specific pattern, and the rest of the .NET don't follow that. So that means that if they create a scope, a new scope, they will never have, they will have a blank options, but they won't, the configure portion of it will never be triggered, causing issues like a null reference issues. So that's the problem with the pattern that we have. And honestly, seeing it failing and still not able to get it to work, I'm wondering if it's even, if it's something we should
remove that, yeah. So this thing here, we just resolve it during the middleware, tenant middleware, and invoke all the async configurations during our own events during the middleware for tenants. So that's expected that in a standard app, it won't work because nobody is resolving those ones to execute them if it's not in Orchard. So maybe there is an issue there. So yeah, maybe we should remove that. It was like, oh, let's make configuration async, but in the end, some cases might not work. So let's not make them async.
Yeah, but it, it'll be interested to know why it didn't work, because at this point, it's very strange because it worked locally. And that's when I confirmed, oh, it's working now. But then as soon as I deployed it, it's not working, which is very, very strange.
But when you deploy your workaround without the async configuration, then it's working.
It works for sure, yeah, because
Okay.
everybody uses the options, even when you create new scope, it just uses that. So that's never an issue. It's just because configure async was never called.
Yep. You could find an issue and to explain how to repro, how to debug, or to test what to test. So if someone wants to investigate, or at least we don't lose this information somewhere. Cool. So this is fixed. Oh, and I mentioned that to the ASP.NET team. And David Fowler said, yeah, that's a bad pattern, what they were doing. That's wrong. So at least you fixed it in the SDK. Cool. Then do not delete the indexing task, so we save the task before, so that's good. Restore recently changed configure method signature. Okay. Fix Lucene Flaky test. Is that the one that was flaky?
It was the last one.
The last what? File
Last
or
flaky test.
this one?
Yeah.
And now it's the more flaky?
Nope.
Oh, now it's perfect.
It's great.
Because you're waiting for that? Or because of other changes?
No, it's actually because of waiting for the deferred task above. After setup. After the initialize async.
Oh, this, okay. I was like, where, what? This one. Now you're waiting at that point and not at that point.
Yeah, the second one is also important, but not the actual problem.
But this one was a test that was failing.
Right.
Okay. So what's happening in a deferred task in this initializing?
It's committing the actual setup, and the second request with another recipe can come in before the first one is finished.
So this is our
In the
custom test context, right? Why
Right.
isn't initializing calling that then?
Yeah, fair point.
And then you fix everything.
Yeah.
Even the thing that already works and that will fail someday.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do that. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
But you can add a comment, okay, to say, yes, we just, because it's a custom thing. It's not like something in Orchard. No, it's a test.
No,
We do
no,
that.
you're absolutely right.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. The rest, I'm
You're
like, I will
welcome.
trust you. Just, this one was hard, but you learn so much from stupid things, working hard on that. You must feel so good when it's like fixed and you understand why. Okay, then some.
Yeah, that took a lot of time.
But you also
From
found
back in
some
the-
things with locking here, where it's Mike. That scares me. Why would you touch this in indexing store? I hope someone approved these changes and understand the changes because it feels so wrong to touch it. I mean, because it's working, in my opinion, and it was hard to.
It's so this is part of the problem because the change. So now these were reverted basically back to before all the changes. So now it's even better.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay. If next week we got some flaky tests on Lucene or bug reports, I'll quote you. But Mike, it's better, so deal with it. OpenAI Connect, Deconnect updated. Update not breaking changes. Good job. Renovate. Fixing correct index existence check. Okay. Because index name is not the same thing as index full name. Who knows?
Yeah, they're not, because the index full name has it could contain a prefix or something like that. So we always use the index full name. So the
As long
index
as it-
name is local to the tenant, and the index full name is it's a name on the server.
Pretty sure you told me that last week. And that as long as there is a doc on the property, it's perfect. Update, revert the update, everything is fixed. Fix CreateOrUpdateIndexProfileStep, because parentheses matter not here. IndexManager and IndexProfileManager. Okay. There I will understand the difference, because you want to create the actual index and because you're managing the class representations of the thing. Swear that it's not the same thing, but logging, no errors. Oh boy, one more method there. Search AI. Okay, Bootstrap 537.1. Thank you. All good. Questions, topics, comments, whatever. Chats. Antoine is confused because he's confused from what he's seeing. I get it. I'm also. Nope, nothing. Okay. Well, thank you for joining. See you on Thursday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan, Mike.
See you.
See
Have a
you.
nice day.